Okay. And 3, 2, 1. We're live. So, there we go. Now we're live. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the XXL podcast with myself, Drew, with myself, Josh Eastham, and Drew Spenlove. This is Coffee with a Stranger. We are going to welcome Jamie Allan on. Not so much of a stranger to me, but he's a fantastic guy. And believe it or not, we're on number 19. Number 19. We're doing pretty good, eh? We're going to get all the way, I don't know. Let's see what we get.
Easy now.
Easy. We're going to get all the way. That's all
we're going to get all the way to 20.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we'll call it a day. We'll complete it. So let's let him in.
Yeah.
I've been chatting to him briefly this morning. Oh, my God.
I know, right?
You've got rid of the beard.
So this is probably the first time we've ever known each other that you've got more facial hair than me, buddy.
Honestly, I probably still haven't. I really haven't. Jamie,
how are we doing?
Jamie, this is Drew. Drew, this is Jamie.
Nice
how are you doing, mate?
I'm very good. Yeah, not bad at all. It is full disclaimer. It's 5:20 here, and this is usually the time we get the big lightning storms. But the light's really nice out here.
Yeah.
So, if a big storm comes in, don't be alarmed. I will potentially relocate to inside. But
amazing.
But I've had when you said we're going to be running late, I was like, brilliant. I'm going to get some more water, quickly nip to the toilet, and get a fan because it's actually really quite warm. Sat in a t-shirt.
Really?
And yeah, well, I mean, since this lockdown, I've pretty much lived
topless
in board short.
Oh,
in board
yeah.
Just like I'm going to the beach every day because it's just so warm. So yeah, it's all good. How are you guys? How's the series going? I've seen you've had some really interesting people on board.
Yeah, it's been good.
It's been rid.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, it's something to do, isn't it, in the lockdown? Which is it's been good. It's keeping us busy each day, kind of Monday to Friday, and then
you're doing one each day. Then
doing kind of one each day, and then we'll like take the weekends off. Gives us time to like contact people. Like originally, it was kind of just put out there as like let's just hope for it. And does anyone fancy like getting on? And then we had quite a good like uptake straight away. And then I think what's happened is it kind of started to snowball a little bit where someone's seen their friend on and then they're like, oh, or they recommended someone to go on. And it's kind of gone from that. So we've got, next week we've got, to be fair, we've got almost like international people now for the next couple of days.
Okay.
So you're based in Kuala Lumpur, am I right in saying?
Yes, yeah.
So Malaysia. Then on Monday, you'll know him, Jamie. I'm pretty sure you'll know him. Jack the Bear, Tony Mance.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Do you remember it? He was a music mastery guy, big dude, but like tatted up, in his 50s.
Was he? Do we know him from Sage World? Or? Yeah. I think I do. Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Awesome.
Yeah. So he's out in Australia. That'd be really cool. And then we've got a guy on Tuesday, which I'm trying to pin down. He's originally British, was part of like Jehovah's Witness, not rebelled against it, but came away from it. And then basically, kind of short story long, essentially, is gone into he basically broke up a marriage from his father-in-law or something like that, and has ended up homeless in Hawaii. Which I'm pretty sure was like a movie title.
Okay. So second disclaimer, my story's not going to be as interesting as that.
Come on,
yeah. But
give the man a chance.
Yeah. So but he's chosen to be homeless in Hawaii. Like it's his.
I think
paradise.
he basically said that he wanted to live somewhere beautiful, even if it meant being homeless.
I mean, there's worse places to be homeless, isn't there? So
yeah,
I think
exactly
that's all relative and all about perspective, really.
Yeah. So, Jamie, how's the lockdown been for you guys?
It's been pretty interesting. So I thought kind of in order to be as accurate as possible, I would prepare some facts for you guys. Now, I couldn't get like the most up to date facts, but obviously, it's interesting being from the UK originally, watching what's going on at home, which is kind of, an interpretation of what we're seeing in the media, but also reports that I'm getting from friends and family back home. Very, very different situation here in Malaysia. So we kind of went into lockdown quite early on because of our proximity to China. We had Chinese New Year. It was evident that we were going to get we had early cases. So the government kind of locked down around about the 17th of March. And it was what we call an MCO. Now, this MCO basically controlled everything. Roads were completely shut down. There was no interstate travel. All schools and every pretty much facility apart from supermarkets and hospitals, and the police was pretty much shut down. As of the 4th of May, there were 6,353 cases, 4,484 recovered. So Malaysia's got like one of the best survival rates of around about 1.16% or something. And there was 105 deaths. But as of the 4th of May, there was 24,000 arrests, 819 roadblocks, 441,000 vehicle searches, and 36,000 surprise police visits to either establishments or like certain, housing blocks, etc. So you talk about the difference of interpretation. I mean, we are now at the point where things are starting to our new cases every day are in the tens, and recoveries. So we are kind of slowly opening up. We're now in a conditional movement control order, which means we can go out and do things. We can take our daughter out, which is lovely. Actually leave the house because she had pretty much 2 months indoors. But yeah, it's been interesting in a lot of respects. For me personally, I've seen it as kind of an abundance of opportunities. We were, to give you a little bit of a context, obviously I run my own business called DRP Dive Tours. And what that stands for, turn around actually, 1 second.
Dive, respect, protect.
Dive, respect, protect. Basically, we do kind of conservation-focused scuba diving trips all around the Coral Triangle and the Indian Ocean. We had a trip scheduled for March. We've obviously, my wife is a full-time teacher out here. We have at the time, a 9-month-old daughter. It was all going a bit hectic and the trip wasn't looking like it was going to fill at all. In the end, I had to kind of pull the plug on that trip. Lost quite a bit of money in deposits, etc., but it was the right call to make. Had I gone out, I'd still be stuck in Indonesia with no way of getting back. I probably would have had to come back to the UK. So that was a kind of an interesting kind of, start to the whole kind of lockdown for me. But I was very thankful for the opportunity to, because we were so busy with this trip kind of, it's a bit like when you're training for an event, Josh, you've got the specific date when everything has to be aligned for that. And it was getting me really stressed out that people weren't committing. And, had I run the trip, I would have faced losing a lot more money. So kind of, when I made the decision to pull the plug, it was actually a big sense of relief. I lost some money, but at the same time, we weren't as forced by this time frame, and it also meant I could be around for my wife and daughter a little bit more. And then the lockdown came. Fortunately, I've been doing a lot of work online as well to complement this. So at the moment, I'm working for a company based in the UK who specialise, ironically, in disaster recovery software. And so I kind of, since the lockdown, have been working very hard on that, and basically managing kind of, Asia Pacific, that territory. That's been going well, which is good. It's kind of, it's exciting to feel a little bit more balanced. But at the same time, I guess it's, allowed for new projects. So, personally speaking, I've got lots of, personal projects that I've had hang over my head, such as, my underwater photography and other photography projects. I'm also a DJ. I've been DJing for about 18 years. I know that you had a DJ on recently as a guest. One of the things, obviously a knock on of that, one of the things that I do, mainly here for just socializing, but I play out quite a lot. It was a good kind of little revenue stream. That's obviously completely dead. There's lots of DJs all around the world who are in a very similar situation. Everyone's doing a Facebook live stream. which gets shut down after about 20 minutes, but because Warner Music or Sony Music have called copyright infringements. And yeah, so I was like, I don't really want to do the live stream thing. It's not really my style, but I spent a weekend really frustratingly trying to put this mix together, like 2-hour mix, and realized the program I was doing it would overwrite at 2 hours. And I did this twice. So basically had like 20 seconds to show for 4 hours work. Finally got this mix down on the Monday, and then put it out on the Monday under the kind of title Don't Panic Disco. And that was volume 1. Today we pushed out volume 66. We've had DJs from Singapore, Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, Malaysia, UK, Canada, Australia, Romania, all around the world contributing mixes, just to kind of, it could be as short as 40 minutes, it could be up to 2 hours, and it goes out every day for some, for people to listen to. And there has been really interesting, creative responses, I think, across the community. You guys doing this is another prime example. It's like, what are we going to do with our time? We can either sit around and complain about the situation, or we can feel empowered to do something different. Right, we've got all this time. Let's create something. And when would you have the time to do this if you were in the normal 9-to-5 situation? So, I think there's a lot of gratitude, for what we have, and what we take for granted as well. Because I don't know about you guys, but the last few months has really, shown me how kind of futile the foundations we base our civilization on are, and they can be kind of pulled away very quickly. Obviously, with the DRP, with the diving, there's always an environmental focus, and I think this COVID-19 has only been like a fire drill for the environmental potential catastrophe that we're sleepwalking into. So it's an interesting one. But yeah, I'm feeling very fortunate about that. And also the other really good thing is we moved house in kind of just before this happened. So we're in a new space with the kind of new energy. So that's gives you a little project to work on. But it's been interesting.
So just I saw Zara share something which was about Malaysia and about their coping mechanisms with COVID. It was a video. I'm pretty sure you liked it, Jamie. But essentially, it was kind of like that they were working as like one unit, like as a massive unit together, and they had like some of the best responses in terms of like everyone almost was like all hands on deck. Didn't matter who you were, what it was. You look after everyone. I'll try and find the video and I'll share it on the page, because seeing that kind of suddenly, it was like a comparison to like the world of what was happening, but Malaysia was almost, they were saying, we've almost come out the other side of it now, and it's because we worked as this whole unit together, which was, it was really, really interesting. So what's your take on like what the UK are doing?
Well, I think, I was reading an article somewhere, and I don't want to get too political because I'm not,
of course,
I've always had this wanderlust throughout my life, and I've always never seen myself living full time in the UK. However, I think the nail in the head was kind of round about, early 2016 when a certain vote went through. And I was like, right, this is not really where I want to be. Anyway, fast forward, I was reading a really interesting article recently about how they were saying that less politically stable nations have dealt with this pandemic better. And generally that's, whilst I would say Malaysia is very politically stable in a lot of respects, there is still some instabilities. And certainly if you look at kind of the way that they have enforced, it has been, pretty heavy-handed. But at the same time, I think you are onto something with this unification thing. So Malaysia kind of, for me, I love KL as a city because it reminds me very much of London. You can be on one street and you could be, a huge, vibrant, Indian community, or, and then you can move for another street and you've got like the most vibrant Chinatown, and Malaysia is a real kind of multicultural mix, and kind of everyone has to get on with each other with the level of tolerance. So we've had Hari Raya, obviously the kind of end of Ramadan last weekend, and it's a great, this is a big celebration, and it's been quite tough to see a lot of these Malay families not being able to go back to their kampung, which is their village, to celebrate with their families, because all interstate travel is banned at the moment.
Sure.
But at the same time, there is a real kind of sense of unity that everyone's kind of got on board, because ultimately, people can't afford to get ill. A lot of people can't afford to get, be on a ventilator. Whilst Malaysia has a very, very good healthcare system, so it's, I think, one of the top destinations worldwide for health tourism. So like if you ever get major like surgery or dentistry work, a lot of people will come to Malaysia to do it. So it does have, but that's all private, etc. So the government stuff is maybe not as kind of well set up there. But going back to my point is, obviously there, if you look at the more kind of politically what we would classify stable nations like the UK and like the US, then we start to enter into a kind of conversation around civil liberties and the specific liberties of those citizens. And, we have a lot of rights that we are afforded by being British citizens living within that climate. And, that has never been more tested over the past 2 years politically. And kind of reinforced, and ultimately the government that is in charge has been voted in, so they kind of need to deal with this. And unfortunately, the reaction is very much, whilst people are told what they're meant to do they listen? There's always a kind of exceptionalism. That rule applies to everyone except me. I can get away with going to the beach, or I can go, whatever. Unfortunately, everyone has that attitude, and it just snowballs. The sad reality of it is, we were planning on coming back for 6 weeks this summer. We've got Anand's wedding, very good friend of ours. We were going to have a little kind of blessing ceremony for our daughter. Lots of plans, and we're not going to come back because the reality is we'll now have to quarantine whilst going into the UK, which is a bit of a joke considering where we're coming from. But now the necessary step, but they should have just done it 2-3 months ago. And also Malaysia is, definitely going to make us quarantine when we've come back from the UK with the numbers that they are. So realistically, it's not going to be, I've written off coming home for 2021, until 2021, because I don't think it's going to happen. It may change, but, there's like with all of these things, you have to take everything you read in newspapers and the media with a massive kind of spade of salt and kind of, do your own research and analysis. But I can only see what's happening here in Malaysia and what I'm seeing at home from kind of, either some form of media reports or just pictures friends have sent me. And it doesn't seem like it's being handled particularly well. I mean, my parents are in Scotland, and even there seems to be handled differently. So there's kind of mixed messages dependent on what you're living. That's not kind of conducive to being managed that well. I mean, what's your guys' take on it? Because obviously this has profoundly affected both of you from a work and life perspective.
Go on, Drew, you go.
Go on, Josh.
Do you want me to?
I don't mind, mate. If you've got something, you go. Not that I haven't.
Yeah. So for me, to be honest, Jamie, it's affected me work-wise, so being on the furlough. To be fair, that's one thing that I would say that the government have been pretty incredible with, is that kind of support, thinking that it was funny, originally the furlough, but, it was kind of said, look, you're going to be off until the end of May, see how things go, but essentially this is the situation in your contract. I was like, okay, fine. And then as the months have gone on, it's been, as the weeks gone on, it's like, okay, we'll see you in August, but part-time. So hence why we started the podcast, because when we saw that this started to get a lot longer, it was like, okay, we talked about doing it before. We'd kind of dabbled in a little bit. And then we thought it was a perfect opportunity to do it. And then also meet new people, just chat, talk about, politics, work, connection, education, be educated about things around the world and what people do and all of that kind of stuff. And having this has probably been a pretty good savior for my mind. As Jamie, Andrew, I've got quite an addictive personality. So when I go into something, it's all guns in.
Part of the fun.
Yeah. So this has been a saving grace doing these with Drew. So I'm very grateful for being able to do this. But being where I am.
You were going to say I'm very thankful for Drew.
Well, yeah, thankful for Drew doing it with me.
Thank you.
But
and same to you.
Essentially, you know, where I am, I'm based in Bovingdon with Louise. We're kind of surrounded by fields, so you know we're in the country, and I think actually it's quite weird because you feel very disassociated with actually what's going on outside. Where when you pop into Hemel or Watford, or you obviously now you can travel further and you kind of see like, wow, the differences of people and how they're moving, and you know the panic of some people, the ignorance of others, and yeah, it's very interesting. I find it fascinating. I found this whole thing super fascinating and
interesting exercise in human behaviour, isn't it?
Oh, just people watching and just seeing how people deal with it and the responses, especially when something happened politically. I think it's been fascinating. Like one of the things that I kind of really struggled to watch and actually just stopped watching was the whole thing with Dominic Cummings, obviously kind of going back and forth and whatever in this early stages, but the amount of media that was just continuously going on about it. And I thought, surely this is like, okay, look, bad, slap on the wrist, you're wrong, do whatever you need to do, but let's move on to actually how we're getting past it. Like, it just seemed that they were just lashing him. And it kind of took me back to a point where, who was the person, Caroline Flack, and you know, she got lashed by people on Twitter and the media, and she ended up taking her life. And I thought, this is just another one. You know, if we all woke up tomorrow and he had taken his life, the amount of like devastation you'd think for the amount of people that were just slaying him and just stuff like that, where he's trying to protect his family. So I don't know. I just had to kind of turn away from it, and I thought it's just a waste of time. I was like watching this current bit at the moment. So yeah, human behaviour has been a big one for me, and just understanding how people are coping and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my side. What about you, Drew?
Sorry, what was the question? In what terms? Like what?
How we're coping, and what's our thoughts?
How are we coping, or just
how has everything affected you, just generally, like, you know, because it was had that.
I think for me, I've just been so humbled by the whole thing. Like for considering, I don't think I really realised how lucky I was to have everything I had before. Not necessarily it being taken away, but things just being stripped back. Like the amount of times I go on about how, I love driving because of how much freedom it gives me. I love just taking my car out whenever I can. Like especially at the moment, I've got a convertible, so the weather's absolutely perfect. And at the moment, you know, I can't really do that. I can.
Well, you can't share it with
but
people.
It's not. No, I can't go and enjoy that time with other people, which I love doing anyway. Like for me, the hardest thing of all of this, which is the main reason why I wanted to do the podcast, was I'm a very sociable person. I'm lucky in my job that I work in a travel and tourism industry. I work for Warner Brothers.
Okay.
So that's going to be tough because obviously you're meeting different people every day. I can't imagine. I mean, we've been furloughed, and the company have been amazing because they've been paying us 100%. So we've been getting our furlough pay from the government, and then it's been topped up. So I can't fault the company for that. I mean, we're furloughed till the end of June. I can't imagine we're going to be going back any time close to that. Yeah, it's you know, like I say, I've loved doing these because I get to see people, and it's all well and good, you know, having a WhatsApp chat and speaking to people over the phone, but doing this face to face with my friends and people I haven't met has been incredible, because it's listening to other people's stories and stuff like that's been awesome. So I've loved every minute of doing the podcast.
I think that's it, isn't it? Really, the kind of the hypocrisy of kind of the world we live in is we are kind of more and more, maybe not right now, but more and more kind of increasingly connected. You know, whether that be social media, whether that be WhatsApp, whether that be email, but it is kind of like noise, and actually stopping and having a focused conversation with a human being takes a whole different kind of mindset. You need to be interested and interesting, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I also live with my dad and my two brothers as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, me and my brothers, we all share similar sort of interests. So as a family, I think it's brought us all a lot closer together. Sort of, you know, honestly, the amount of times me and my brother would be at each other before this entire quarantine, we've spent the last. See, I was actually off from the 17th as well. That was when I got furloughed from work, 17th of March, and my brother was furloughed a week later. So from that amount of time, we've spent the entire 2 and a bit months together, and we've never got on more. It's been crazy. Like, I was thinking we'd absolutely be tearing each other a new one. Like, there's been the odd little thing, but nothing crazy. And it's, it's been mad. I've never thought we'd get on so well.
Yeah,
which has been great.
No, it's good.
And my younger brother as well. He's all right.
He's all right.
Should probably give him a shout out and all, really. He's all right.
So Jamie, obviously, so just to give people an idea, and you, Drew, so you can kind of understand how I know Jamie. I was currently basically working in recruitment and was doing a stint in there. I was doing aerospace and engineering, and then basically a guy who I used to personal train, Nick Bell, shout out. He basically he said to me, if you want to. I was kind of going.
It's also his birthday today as well.
Yeah, it's his birthday, isn't it? Yeah, happy birthday, Nick. So yeah, he basically said to me, "Look, do you want to come work in the city with me? We've got this cool office. It was a big office for like 4 people.
Great office. Yeah.
It was like it was
At
enormous.
one point.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really interesting. Went in, met Jamie, and basically kind of ended up working there, and then. The times kind of changed over a year, where we went and worked. We kind of, I don't know, what would you say, Jamie? We kind of built like a business with our friend Nick on the basis of a guy called Peter Sage, which was all about like enlightened entrepreneur, business, high ticket value like products and events. That fell to pieces. I think,
Peter Sage, did you say?
Yeah, Peter Sage. Used to work for a guy called Anthony Robbins, the old Tony Robbins guru.
Okay.
But yeah,
maybe it's another.
And then
person.
Basically we ended up pretty much quitting our day jobs and then doing that full time. And then you traveled. Well, were you still in the UK at that point, or did then you?
So that was quite a formative period, because I think I would say that actually, there was some substance to doing kind of the MBS and that mindset training and kind of
it was incredible,
inspiring people around that. And I think for me, I've to give you my background, Drew, I grew up in the UK, and I've kind of gone the traditional school, uni, London life, and kind of found myself in pretty much a 10-year kind of career with little spells. I'd make a lot of money in a sales job, quit my job and go traveling for 6 months, and did that for a couple of times, and met my now partner when I was working with Josh, and we kind of made an agreement that come rain or shine, we're leaving the UK summer 16, which I was quite happy about. But we obviously did this experience together, and that was interesting. I think, just meeting all of these interesting people and seeing kind of, what is potentially possible. For me, kind of, I made a decision that we were going to go. So kind of, it was just after you went and did your thing. We left to originally to the Philippines. So we moved there to do our dive master in a tiny little island called Malapascua. And then we moved to Bali and we did our dive instructor there for like a few months. And then we moved back to Philippines and we're working kind of a beachy existence, teaching people scuba diving, and all of that. But I think, later on down the line, my partner, Zara, she was also an instructor, kind of had a few health issues, and scuba diving is not an industry, if you're getting ear problems all the time, that is really sustainable for you to work in. So we made a kind of call that actually maybe she'll look at going back into full-time education, which was her background. And yeah, I kind of, decided I was going to start DRP and potentially pick up a bit of sales work in the same time. And I think that's the kind of thing, is one of the best things that we learned from that whole process is just kind of, and one of the things I would urge anyone to do during this lockdown process is kind of looking and analyzing your skill set and seeing how you can potentially monetize that in the future. It's not, I think the most frustrating thing that, when we initially moved out, we were living quite an idyllic existence, and our life is really nice here in Malaysia. But like, people kind of occasionally say, you're so lucky. And I'm like, there's no luck to it. It's having the balls and confidence in yourself, backing yourself to do that. And, people have realized, as you were saying, Drew, that you realize how much you have when it's taken away. So, we all have this opportunity to travel, for example. A lot of people will be looking to do traveling, as some part of their kind of plans in the future. If you want to make a lifestyle out of it, start trying to understand, what potential skills you have. So much can be done remotely now. It's like really empowering. If I've got a good internet connection, I know I can find something. And that's been a really interesting process. Kind of, the beauty of it is, if it all goes tits up, I can go home. I can go back to the UK tomorrow. But at the moment, life is, we've got a nice balance. I spend much more time with my daughter. We have like a full-time carer for her as well. We live in a 2,500 square foot apartment that costs us £700 a month rent. It's like, and Josh, it's got 4 gyms, so you're sorted when you come to visit. Real sawdust and sweat ones as well. But yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's just, I think, it's a very interesting process, this lockdown, and it definitely should be empowering. Like, you guys are in fortunate positions that you've got kind of good companies backing you, but everyone's got opportunities to learn and develop, and maybe think about what's the long-term plan. I know, Josh, you've always wanted to go to the States, for example, and yeah, there's always things. It's exciting. So I hope you guys come and visit when this is all over. Teach you how to dive.
Mate, I'd love that. Oh,
incredible!
Gosh. I'd absolutely love that.
Jamie, I'm looking in your window.
Go on.
Sorry, I was just looking in Jamie's window, and I can kind of see like a view. What's the view like off your balcony?
Oh right, yeah. Let's
pretty
show
nice.
you.
Let's give us a little.
It's all right. So you can see by basically over. Oh yeah, this is our balcony. It's massive. Like, so we had all of this. We've got loads of plants to the kids, and we've got outdoor barbecue with the balcony is. But then over here, you'll see is the rainforest.
Wow.
So we've got like really dense rainforest, and then kind of this is more the valley, so it's a bit more built up.
Okay.
But because we're quite high and we're right next to the rainforest, it's it's quite a bit cooler. So, and we can also literally, our neighbours showed us a route we can walk for 10 minutes and pretty much cut into like dense tropical jungle.
Oh wow,
which is awesome. So yeah, no, it's really cool. Malaysia is basically a big valley that you see all jungle. It's quite developed up now, but as far as the city goes, it's really, really nice because it's got all of the things that you would potentially ever miss from home, but so much more affordable because it's here. And if you can find a way to make it work, it's definitely a cool place. And come visit. They give you 90 days in entry with a British passport.
Oh wow, okay.
So the first year I did, when I was just working and building my business, I lived here on a tourist visa because me and Zara weren't married at the time. So yeah, I just came in and out when I was doing dive trips. But yeah, no, it's a really interesting place for sure.
Yeah, talk us through your business and talk through like the diving, because I'll get some photos and stuff like that and just show.
How are we doing for time, Josh?
Good point. We got
4.5 minutes.
Jamie, how the hell do you know that?
Because I can. It tells me. You get a little warning.
Oh, does it not tell you, Drew?
Remaining meeting time. Are you on a phone?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because
the amount of time, every single podcast we've ever done, I've been like, Josh, how are we doing for time, mate? Hit my screen.
No, it's fine. We're all good.
Bad. We got a little bit of time.
Are you in a rush, Jamie, or?
I can do. No worries at all. It's all good.
Yeah,
do you want to do that, Josh?
Yeah, 100%. I've got so much more to ask. Yeah, love that.
I'd love to know.
Yeah. I think I was just literally talking about the business. So because you were out in Bali for how long?
So I was in Philippines initially for about 2 months, and then I was in Bali for about 2.5 months, and then I moved back to Philippines just because you've got to work in the countries that are easiest to exist in as a foreigner, and Philippines was super easy, and Indonesia was quite difficult.
Yeah, and why was that? Is that due to cost? Is that due to accommodation?
No,
just getting
generally
about?
because each country in Southeast Asia has different kind of like agreements in terms of how often you can how long you can stay in the country on a visa. Yeah. So, for example, Malaysia is 90 days on entry. Indonesia, you get 29 days on entry, but you can pay $25 to get it extended, go and extend it at some point, which you have to go and do in an immigration office. It's quite a long-winded process, but you can stay for up to 60 days basically, or you can get a social visa for like 6 months, but you can't leave the country. Philippines, you can come in and stay, like just keep renewing, which doesn't take long, but up to 3 years at a time.
Wow.
So yeah, it was kind of a bit of a no-brainer for us. Plus the Filipinos are really, really lovely. Like they're really, really generous and lovely people, and kind of, we're quite tolerant to foreign dive instructors coming in and, we working freelance or whatever. Whereas Indonesia, there were, some pretty big horror stories of people getting caught with it, and the ramifications were 5 years in prison or $20,000 fine. So yeah, neither of those you really want to entertain. So
yeah.
I like Indonesia. It's some of the best diving in the world, and we do a lot of tours there now because, certainly if you look at the Coral Triangle, so to give you guys a bit of perspective, the Coral Triangle is the body of water between Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia. And it's basically what the most biodiverse waters in the world. And one of the main reasons for that is during the last ice age, it was the only body of water that didn't freeze over. So you think of all the species that, like all original corals, they say now originated from the Coral Triangle because they had to go out from the Coral Triangle after the last ice age. So yeah, it's incredibly biodiverse. But Philippines is amazing as well. So
yeah, and with obviously when you started the business, how was that? Is that pretty tough, like to start? Is there? What's the tour? Is it a tourist thing, or is it a?
So effectively, the way that initially I kind of like ran DRP was very much, I want to do something in scuba diving, but I don't want to work for a dive shop. I couldn't really get a lot of work for a dive shop anyway, but being in KL, I'm not on the sea, so that kind of that takes that one away. And also Malaysia is like one of the lowest paying kind of countries for diving. Generally, they don't pay a lot for courses or trips or anything because it's such a competitive marketplace. So I kind of set about with this vague idea, and like all things that came with the DRP, Dive Respect Protect, was what I was basing it on. And that was kind of inspired because we had worked in a number of different dive operations, and we had seen some of them do things fantastically well. They're really environmentally focused, really think about their impact on the environment, and some of them don't give a shit. That's the kind of like the problem you have there. Yet every operation will wax lyrical about, we're really environmentally friendly, we're doing this, we're doing that, and so there's no real kind of way of how do you actually, without going and flying halfway across the world to see this operation, how do you know if they're actually legitimate? And that's kind of where we came in. Is ultimately, we very much kind of focus on only using environmentally responsible operators, but also supporting social kind of enterprises and initiatives that are ongoing within that environment. So we kind of really minimize our impact, but also fund. One of the biggest things is with the kind of whole ecotourism sector is you vote with your dollars. If you are prepared to spend that money with this with this agency or this particular operator, then hopefully that will create a trend, and more people will be willing to do that, and that will kind of set the precedent of you either stick to these operational guidelines or you're not going to get business because people are willing to do that. So we set about doing that, and it was hard because obviously, my background is in sales. I'm good at selling things, but I had to build a website. I had to kind of start planning trips. I had to kind of look at the logistics of that. A lot of that I'd got experience of from what I was doing with bits of my diving and stuff, but a lot of it, building a website, I was like, I haven't got a clue. But I'm very much, going back to what I was saying, I was very much of the attitude, I'd rather do it myself and learn the skill than pay someone to do it for me, because then I've got that skill for future reference.
Sure.
So yeah, we did that, and then we started with a few kind of just tours. So I had Rob Maunder and another friend come and meet me in the Philippines, and we did a 3-day trip. Then I had another few friends over from the UK, and we did a trip in Malaysia. And kind of with that, I felt I had enough understanding of what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. What I did want to do was predominantly focus on the liveaboard market. So when you go diving, you can either go to a resort and do day trips, and you go off every day and you come back to that place. In the liveaboard, you very much are living on a boat for a 7-8 day duration, traveling around. You're traveling at night, you're doing night dives. It's a very much more, it really, really kind of, you get so much more dragged into the experience because there's no let off from it. At the same time, from my perspective, which, my role when we go on these trips is very much the master of ceremony. I'm making sure that everyone's really happy on the trip, making sure that they're grouped correctly. If anyone needs additional training, I will help them with that. So I'm just kind of smoothing things over, but making sure they run on time. If you've got 8 adults living in a resort or halfway across town and you're trying to coordinate them, it's like herding cats. Because, going back to the trying to quarantine the UK, it doesn't work. So, but on a liveaboard, there's no running away. You're on a boat, and that's it. So, but it is very special as well. We did initially our first trip we did to Komodo. So I've got a very good organisation I use out there called Wanderpus, personal friends of ours. So they run a really, really beautiful kind of old style Ficini. Like, it looks like a pirate ship, the liveaboard.
Amazing.
And yeah, Komodo is just incredible. I the first time I went diving, or after I learned how to dive and I was still traveling, it was one of the first places I visited. It's a national heritage site. It is one of the most biodiverse places in the world, and it just feels like you're sailing through Jurassic Park. It's absolutely incredible. And
is that because of the Komodo dragons?
Well, no, it's because of the topography. The dragons are there. I mean, we do the dragons every trip, but from my perspective, they're the least entertaining part of the entire trip. Komodo is basically kind of sat in the middle, smack bang in the middle of something we call the Indonesian through flow. So basically, scientists have looked, and the body of water between basically Sumatra and Lombok. Kind of goes through, but it also whips through Komodo as well. And then you've got a cold upwelling from the Banda Sea at the south. So what that does is basically you've got all of this nutrients being created. There's these hot currents coming from Australia, which are moving through to the Indian Ocean, and these cold currents coming up from the south hit each other. So it creates a nutrients boom. So Komodo's corals are really, really healthy. All of their small stuff is massive because it's got so much more food to eat. Then we also get loads of pelagic visitors. So, I mean, I've done dives in Komodo where I've stopped counting at 35 manta rays, 4 meter wide, fully mature and mated. You get, they've seen humpback whales there. They've seen hammerhead sharks. They've seen, thresher sharks. They see a lot of, schools of thousands of eagle rays or a cow-nose rays flying over. And the other thing is the currents there, because of this through flow. So they've worked out basically 30% of the body of water runs from the Pacific into the Indonesian into the Indian Ocean. And there's a 1.5 meter height difference because so much is flowing through. But the currents are wicked. They are the strongest in the world. So it's like going in a roller coaster. So yeah, we've done a few Komodo trips. We've done 3 of those, and we've also done a trip to Maldives as well. I also run these trips with a guy now who's kind of joined me, who actually might be really interesting for the podcast. He's a guy called Duncan. He's a South African, but lives in Australia. He's an underwater kind of cinematographer.
Wow.
So my first tour, basically, it was really interesting. I was like, I have to sell the spaces really to make what my margin is on these trips. And so I was kind of getting to the point where I was worried I wasn't going to sell it. So I was like, what else can I do? I have this valuable asset in the space on this trip. How else do I use that? So social media and all of that, you can potentially get free marketing or whatever if you exchange a trip. But I wanted to work with someone who was involved and passionate about kind of ocean conservation, but also had a mechanism, i.e. video, that I could then use, video and footage and, stills that I could use to promote future trips. So yeah, anyway, I approached quite a few people. Duncan came back to me immediately. He was like, okay, I've booked time off work. And I'm like, hold on. Like, maybe we should have a conversation on the phone first before you go and booking flights and booking time off work. Like, we don't ever even like each other. Anyway, we talked for about half an hour and got on house on fire. And we got him on the trip and we still had 2 spaces left. And a week before the trip, he calls me and goes, right, have you still got those 2 spaces? I've got a couple that want to sell, want to buy them full price. I'm like, okay, well, you've paid for your space and you're going to do this. Oh, brilliant. So, since then, he's kind of been very much involved with that. With the Australian market, he's got a lot of connections, but he's also, he's an amazing visual storyteller about the underwater world. He's recently, I think, landed a contract to 3D map a wreck off a bay in Australia, to provide this kind of a whole VR experience. It's since then, I think, to be honest with you, I've kind of come to the realization that balancing this business and my family life is going to be quite a struggle. So the kind of way that I'm viewing this is more of a lifestyle enabler than a kind of solid business that I'm going to be able to count my it's going to be my breadwinner. Yeah. So what I mean by that, if it empowers me to go on 2 or 3 trips a year, covers my costs, and I get to do what I'm really passionate, which is the best diving in the world, then it's not so bad. And if it we keep building the brand, if it gets to a point where we have got lots of attention, we're selling out tours, we can potentially expand. If not, at least I've got lots of incredible diving memories and met this whole incredible network of like-minded individuals. I mean, it is really interesting because our customers are, it's all Western, either European nations, American, Australian. That's predominantly where our customers come from. But, you get people from all walks of life, and then you've got to spend a week on board with them and make them your best friend. Really, really interesting.
What kind of businesses or what kind of jobs are people doing that are coming on this kind of trip?
So to give you a kind of, our last trip was really good, actually. We had a really good group of guys on. We had a guy who was really, really head up software developer from based out in Seattle, and his wife, and they had done a trip previously with the same operator and wanted to come back, but saw the Dive Respect for Tech thing on social media and were like, we want to do it with you. Something amazing. Resonated, and they were first people to book. We obviously had Duncan and his amazing partner Charlie, just avid divers. They live in Bondi Beach, so they literally can go diving before and after work if they want to every day. So they were there coming on, and Charlie's actually been on our Maldives trip. So Charlie's she's a kind of high-end project manager for kind of law firms, and does some really incredible stuff there. We also had a girl from Ohio who was a marine biologist, a landlocked state in America. She's a marine biologist. She was really fun. We had a wealth manager, a insurance broker originally from the States but based out in Sydney, and a marine biologist from Palau, originally from Korea. None of these people would probably have ever met in their life unless there was obviously Duncan had brought a few, but and yet we are still, I get updates on the WhatsApp group I set up before that trip every day. Everyone still talks. We've done team meetings during lockdown where we've done a quiz. And so I think, I've always said to my guests, you do arrive as strangers, but you do leave as friends. If you put your trust in me, we'll have the most incredible life-changing experience, and we're going to do some incredible diving alongside it. So not bad.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love it. I love
Where do I sign up?
Well, this is it. If you're interested, Josh, I can actually share one of Duncan's videos, highlight reel from the last trip, and you guys can post it up. To give you an idea of what we do. It's awesome,
mate. If it helps you get the brand out there, then that's what we're about.
It's not for that more. It's more just get people inspired. What they can do, and also
look at
you guys
beauty, Josh, man. God, it's not all about making money.
Hey, I'm just helping.
You said it true. But yeah, no, I would say also if people are interested in listening to this podcast at the moment, Paddy are giving loads of discount on all of the online fees. So if you wanted to do part of your theory and all of that side of things, which you have to do, better to do it while you've got time. Paddy have magnanimous. They've given a big discount on that. So that's there's a good opportunity to do a bit of extra learning there. Do that first, and then come and meet me out here. We'll finish off the course.
Lovely, love that.
Love that.
Incredible. Jamie, you obviously went down, I know you said about Duncan, I'm assuming he comes on to take a lot of the kind of photography and stuff like that of the trip, but you are pretty talented with a camera as well. You've got, what's the Instagram where people can find it?
There's multiple. I kind of actually had a bit of hiatus from my Instagram the last few months because I was finding it so stressful in the run up to this tour. I was just like, do you know what? I can't be bothered. I'm just not going to bother doing it.
Sure.
But yeah, when Zara and I started our journey in diving, we started off in an account called I Dream in Macro. Basically, I'm really, really obsessed with small things when we get underwater. So our guests will be looking at a 4 meter wide manta ray, and I'll be obsessing over this amphipod, which is the size of a full stop. I joke you not. I'm quite good at finding these things because I kind of understand the relationships, the symbiosis between these creatures. But yeah, so I Dream in Macros, all the small stuff. And then Dive, Respect, Protect is obviously our one. But if you want to see there's some examples of Duncan's work in there, but his handle is at Aussie Bubbles. So that's, it's all one word, Aussie Bubbles. And then obviously since lockdown, because I can't take pictures of anything underwater, I started a land macro one of all the spiders that come in here, and that's Buggin Oot, OOT. But I haven't kept up with them because it's too stressful. But it's amazing.
That's one good thing about England.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. What's kind of wildlife?
On my goal. Wildlife's amazing. I mean, it's a goal for me personally to become or close to a professional photographer, underwater photographer, but it takes a lot of investment. So I'm kind of starting off slowly. And, to give you an example, I've just bought a new Canon full frame DSLR. The housing for that's about $6,000 US, something like that, roughly. So it's very expensive. But yeah, no, it's amazing. And I think, it's definitely, it's nice to have goals, isn't it? And nice to have passions. It's just more.
It's a very nice camera.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, Drew's pretty knowledgeable on the old camera section.
Yeah, 5D Mark IV. So very happy with it so far.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, some of these photos.
I worked with a couple of ones previous to that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, great technology.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Love that. So we'll talk about, appreciate obviously your time and stuff like that, but hopefully you're good to carry on.
Yeah, I should be good. I will have to start doing dinner duties in about 10 minutes, but that's all good.
Absolutely fine. We can run with that. I was going to talk basically about Zara and her work. How's that been? Obviously, she is a teacher. What does she do key stage?
They do. So she works for an international school, which does it basically does IB. It also does IGCSE. She kind of works in very much the senior. She has a number of different roles for the school. So she's basically head of head of the PHSLE.
Here we go.
Okay.
We're just talking about your job. Yeah. This is Kiki.
Hey Zara.
Hello.
Hey Kiki.
This is Kiki.
Hello.
She is looking a little bit tired, but
bless her.
But she's just going to come out and join us for her dinner. But yeah, so Zara, it's really, really interesting that you mentioned that. I know you had a teaching support assistant on a few episodes back.
We just had a PE teacher a couple of days ago as well.
Yeah, okay. So I think the thing is, obviously, it's not representative of all of Malaysia. She's working for an international school. These are fee paying kind of parents, etc. But their attendance is basically 100% now.
Wow.
And they are using a mixture of Google Classroom, Google Hangouts, and Google Drive. So basically, because they're trying to minimize, pardon? And a lot of other apps, she says. But because they're trying to minimize the screen time, usually the teacher will be online with all the students, does the register for the first 15 minutes, and then sets them a task. Zara's trying to be like as much, with geography, you can do a lot of colouring in. I'm only kidding. No, with geography you can. Like they're doing maps, for example, at the moment. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with pen and paper. And then students can message at any point in the classroom to check if they've got any questions. But yeah, they've really taken to it very well, to the extent that the school kind of made a decision. Well, I think they were saying, if it's not, are we going to go back by the end of the year? Is it in our best interest to do that, or actually start in September, because it's working quite well? I mean, it's been really insightful for me though, just to see how incredibly kind of passionate and dedicated Zara is to it. And I think there's, I do think teachers are really on the front line in a lot of ways, not just now, but in general. They are kind of, counselors, they are educators, they are kind of heroes for a lot of children. And, it's a very valuable skill and valuable profession. And, it certainly has, if Zara hadn't invested the time in that, we wouldn't be here, pretty much, is in a nutshell. But the schools, I think, have done well. We'll see what happens in the coming months. It's all TBC. What's the new normal going to look like, Josh?
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I was almost expecting you when you were saying about that they're thinking about just closing the schools for good and just doing online courses.
No, not for good. I
was like, wow, this is getting, yeah.
Blimey.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to justify the fees.
No, yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah. It's
that's crazy.
But that's great. That's great that everything's going well, and yeah, I mean, like, you guys have settled down really well, so it's incredible to see what you guys have done, and kind of obviously you had that goal of the lifestyle that you've got. So amazing, mate. Absolutely amazing.
I think we've been very fortunate. I mean, I'm fortunate that I've found the partner to come on this adventure with me. I don't think I would be able to have ever done this by myself. I'm fortunate, in the background that I've got from an education and kind of, professional experience, like being able to leverage that in some shape or form.
Sure.
And, I think we're fortunate that we've just, ultimately kind of had families that have been quite supportive of this move. It is quite different, it's quite an alienating experience, kind of, being so far away from home, certainly raising a young family and all of that. But technology is great for that. And, there's, it means you have incredible visitors and long, amazing holidays with family when they do come out. And hopefully we can be back in the UK not too far away, because that would be quite good.
Yeah, amazing.
That's nice. Right. I'm a little bit conscious of time, and I know you've got
Thank you so much, guys. Well, no, it's fine. I mean,
dinner, Jamie.
Zara's already made it for Kiki. It wasn't. We're fine because it's leftover veggie chili. Like I feel like from a culinary perspective, my life has been leading up to the lockdown. I've really just enjoyed my cooking so much. But yeah, no, it's all good. Like Zara brought the food out, and the Kikis immediately poured it onto the floor because we're doing baby-led weaning, so she feeds herself. It's very messy.
No. We do one thing with all of our guests, Jamie, before we go. We do. What is your top tip for getting through lockdown? I'm interested to know if it differs in Malaysia to what it does in the UK.
I mean, I'm just in general. Top tip is mindset for me personally. A mindset of how you approach this. Don't see things as a burden. See them as an opportunity. And I know that's difficult to say. I'm in a good position right now. People might not be. They might have lost their jobs. I know a lot of people, businesses that are struggling, but they are trying to see, opportunities around that, or past this. So mindset, I think, is so important. Generally mentally, kind of, keeping going on. Josh is very focused about that when it comes to exercise. Your brain and your kind of emotions are just as important. And I know, to be honest with you, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling nervous, and if things, starting to feel over-mentioned, turn off the tap of all these kind of negative, influences that we have. There's so much hype and press in the media. Digital detox is a really beautiful thing. Mindfulness as well. If you're not into mindfulness and you struggle with it, with like the apps, there's a really good, I'll share it with you guys so you can put it out. There's a really good one designed for creatives, but it works. RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan. And he's done these guided meditations. It's about 5 sessions over 40 minutes. But he talks about particular life challenges he's had and what he did, and then empowers you to kind of live that in your own life. Find your problem. This is how you're going to solve it. And it's quite practical. So if you're not into the trying to be as quiet and mindful, this is a really good option. So mindset is completely, for me, you've got to remain positive. We will get through this, and hopefully we're going to be better people coming out of this process.
Love that.
There you go, ladies and gents. Jamie Allan. Mate, amazing to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time, and keep doing what you're doing. I know you're giving a lot of strength and positivity to people at this time, but you're going to be building something bigger. So watch out. You've got to feed the beast.
That's it.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Guys.
Love
Cheers,
you guys.
Talk to you soon. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Cheers, man.
Bye.
There you go, man. Jamie Allan. Just what a guy.
Podcast. That was incredible. I want to get my diving license now.
Yeah, mate, that's it. Like you said, the PADI. I'm assuming the theory, the PADI 1, is going fairly cheap. Well, fairly cheap, discounted. Why not make use of the time and get that done? Then, before you know it, you can go and finish the rest off and go diving.
There we go. Well, thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications on, and
all that jazz.
Spread peace and love.
Yeah, spread the word.
Yeah.
Big love. See you tomorrow, guys.
Thank you, guys.